Okay, welcome back to another vinyl vid, much later than I had planned. I really did intend to have this up by, I don't know, maybe the first week of March, but instead we're leaving it until pretty much the last week of March. But, and I apologise for that if anyone does like these vinyl vids, but another vinyl vid will be due within the next week or two perhaps. I'm not going to leave it as long in April, and that's almost a promise. We'll see. So yeah, got 6 records altogether. There's a bit of side action going on there. Probably won't be able to recognise any of them. So yeah, just going to talk a little bit about them, of course, from what I've heard so far. Some of them I'm overly familiar with, and I've had them on CD in the past. And some of them, obviously, are very new. In fact, one of them I had on a tape back in 1989 when I was a kid. So, the first one up is quite a unique one, really. I'll show you what it is. I'll talk a little bit about it. But before I do, well, actually, no. The band are called Will and the People. I really like the album cover there. So Will and the People, what's the best way to describe these? Maybe, I was going to say, start off by saying rock, but that would give you the wrong impression. But there's elements of rock, but more, let's see, rock, a little bit of pop, but more folk music with a bit of ska and reggae. It sounds a really strange blend and mix. Very eclectic, but it really works. I'm going to put a link to a couple of tracks below, one from the album and another one from, where was it? It was a performance on a YouTube channel, called Balcony TV. And that's where I discovered Will and the People, probably maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And I instantly liked the one track that I heard. And I thought, well, I've got to check these guys out. Now, I was really surprised to see that I think this is their second album, which came out in 2013. They've since released another one, I think one more. So they've got 3 albums out. But I was surprised to see that tracking down a record is very, very difficult. It seems as if they're not particularly famous or popular, which doesn't really mean anything, of course. Doesn't mean to say they can't be good, because they're excellent. But it's a shame, because everybody should be aware of this band. They're really, really good. I think the guy, the singer, well, he's definitely called Will. I think his last name is Rendell. A really talented songwriter. He's got a good voice. Honestly, he's one of those people, and there's not many of them for me, but there's not many of these guys who basically you hear their words before you really hear the tune and the music, and that's a compliment, I think, to his songwriting. A really clever lyricist. There's not many people out there. I mean, obviously there's a few, but in the scheme of things, there's not many that do that for me, and he's one of the few that really hits home. You listen to what he's saying, and you think, that's clever. I see what he's saying there. It really works. So, really clever songs, political in parts, but not in others. You'll, I'm sure, hear for yourself. But it's more, not so much about politics, but more about life and love and relationships. Very positive, really. And they seem a very positive band. Always seem to be smiling. I'm not their agent, by the way. Smiling and, yeah, really good. Very vastly, from what I can gather, vastly underrated. But bizarrely, I say underrated, they seem to be massive in Holland, of all places. One of those really curious situations where you get a band who nobody really knows, certainly when it comes to mainstream, or so it seems, that's my interpretation, in their own home country, but are big somewhere else. It's kind of a little bit like, it's not the best analogy or comparison to use, but like Bush with Gavin Rossdale. Bush were pretty big, or are pretty big, in America, but in the UK, nobody cared. Nobody cared. It was a bit sad, really. I mean, even someone like, you could say Def Leppard, you know, big-ish in the UK, of course, but massive in America, much bigger in America than the UK. And I've always found that very curious how those situations happen, but it's happened here on a less scale than Def Leppard and then Bush, I guess. But yeah, same kind of thing. Now, another curious thing about this is I only just found this out the other day. Apparently, take it with a pinch of salt, apparently this record, there's only 300 released. So if you want to track this down, you may have a bit of a mission on your hands. But the odd thing about it is I got it on their official website. So again, that maybe highlights that they're not a massively popular band. So you can possibly get this on their website still. Or maybe that was a lie. Or maybe they reprinted some extra copies, a few hundred or thousand, I don't know. But I really urge you to check it out. So I'm going to, like I say, as always, in the description box below there'll be 2 tracks. One will be from the album. I don't know which one. I'll just kind of pick one. Not at random. It'll be one that I think's pretty decent. But I'll also put a live performance from their Balcony TV gig. Hopefully it'll be the one that I remember watching, but it was a while ago now. So I'll just put a live performance, whatever it is. See what you think. So that is that. Let's stick them down there for now. In fact, it's not going down there. Let's put it there. Okay, so the next one up is, it's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, really. It's Black Sabbath and I was going to say debut album. It was their second album called Paranoid. Now, obviously, everyone, I'm sure, is familiar with Paranoid, which is track number 2. War Pigs is another big hit off this album, as well as Iron Man. But also things like Planet Caravan is a really good kind of trippy song to chill out to. Electric Funeral, Hand of Doom. It's a great, great album. Now, this on the back says 1971. This is a reissue, by the way. I am pretty certain it came out in 1970, but I've had a few of these examples, and maybe it's because I live in America. I think what happened a lot is, and probably still does, I'm sure, is an album will come out, say, in the UK in 1970, which this did, I'm almost certain. But then in 1971, it came out a few months later in America. So that's why it says 71, because it's, I guess, an American reprint. So you're really good, almost seminal, I should say, heavy metal record. Now, if you like your heavy metal, you know, this is kind of the roots. It really is. So I'm not a massive heavy metal fan. That's the thing in terms of modern music, heavy metal music. But I really like Black Sabbath. This is a really, really strong album. I mean, who doesn't like a bit of Ozzy Osbourne? Come on, seriously. So really pleased to get it. And like I say, a strong album. Most people will be aware of, as I'm repeating myself, War Pigs, Paranoid and Iron Man. But there's much more to it than that. So, strange cover, no doubt about it. Very kind of trippy, and it does look very 70s as well, albeit right at the very beginning. So yeah, there we are. Black Sabbath and Paranoid. Pleased to have it, and a good record. One to put the volume up on that one. And still sounds pretty fresh. That's another thing about it. I mean, obviously, in comparison to heavy metal music nowadays, modern music, it sounds a little bit tame, but it still sounds good, and clearly you can tell that it influenced a lot of bands. So that's that, and they're still going, I think, aren't they, Black Sabbath? I think. Didn't they just release an album recently? I mean, was it their last one or their last tour? They're doing something like that. Anyway, next one up is... now, this is interesting because this ties into my username on YouTube of Bluetonic. Now, I have told the story before a good few years ago. It's not much of a story, by the way. But just in case you were curious as to where the name Bluetonic came about, it came about as a result of a band called the Bluetones. So we're kind of talking Britpop music now. Now, I like the Bluetones. They're a good band. This is their debut album called Expecting to Fly, which I bought on CD back in '95 when it came out. They're a good band, but they're not one of my favourite bands. They wouldn't, and I'm not, dismissing them, but they wouldn't make like a top 50 or a top 100 or anything like that. I like them, but the reason why Bluetonic come about is Bluetonic is a track off this album. And when I was creating a YouTube channel, which was a good few years before I actually started uploading vids, I was thinking of a username. I thought, what can I call myself? And I went through all these silly usernames, all sorts of odd stuff. And I remember thinking, well, let's just pick something music-related. And so I picked up things like my Oasis CDs and Blur CDs, and I was looking at the back thinking, Shaker Maker, Wonderwall, Park Life. Well, nothing was really kind of sticking. I mean, I kind of liked some of them, but it didn't really work. And I picked up this album, and on the back, Bluetonics. It's the second track off the, if you can even see it on there, the second track on side A. And I thought, that sounds really cool. I thought, Bluetonic. It's got a ring to it. It sounded clever. And it doubled up with like the Manchester City connections with, Blue. So I thought it's got to work. Bluetonic. So that's where I got that name from. It's a good track. It's not an amazing track. And like I say, it's a band which are just all right. I don't think they're that amazing. But I do like this record. Like I say, it came out in the Britpop era, 1995. Britpop band, essentially. I did see the Bluetones in Bournemouth in around about... when was it? It was much, much later than this. Probably like 2004, 5, about 10 years after this. And they were pretty good. Pretty good. But they were playing in a bar called Mr. Smith's, if anyone remembers that in Bournemouth. Did that go on and be called the Gardening Club? Or anyway, if you're not from Bournemouth or there or thereabouts, or if you've not lived there or been there, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. So yeah, a really strong album. Slight Return is probably the one which most people will recognise. Their second album was much more successful, and it's probably a better all-round album. But this is really good. Britpop album, bit of blues in there as well, a bit of soul. definitely detected. So yeah, I really like it. Slight Return, as I say, is a good song. Cut Some Rug is really good. Talking to Clary, which is the opening track on side A, really good. Can't Be Trusted is also a good song, which is the opening track on side B. And what I found funny about Can't Be Trusted is the Bluetones wanted to release that as a single. I don't know whether they wanted it to be their first single or their third, fourth, whatever it may be, second for that matter. But the record company, who I'm guessing, was it Parlophone? It doesn't, yeah, it does say Parlophone. Does it say Parlophone? It doesn't, but whoever the record company was at the time, because this is a reissue, they basically said, no, we're not going to release Can't Be Trusted as a single, because the record company said it didn't have a chorus, and a chorus is what is going to sell the record and promote the band and all that kind of stuff. And it's true, it doesn't really have a chorus as such, but it's still a really good track and a really catchy song like that. So a little bit of useless information for you there on the Bluetones. But yeah, pleased to have it, and I'm a big fan of the whole Britpop movement and Britpop music in general. It's my kind of era when I was in my kind of early to, well, mid-teens, I guess, early, mid-late teens. So really like it. Good album, and thoroughly recommended. So 3 left, one cheesy one at the end, but I like it, I'm not going to lie. So the next one up is kind of a synth pop, electropop, bit of dance, the usual kind of thing that I do like, and I do tend to show in most of my vids. And this one is called Penguin Prison. Now, Penguin Prison is essentially a guy who does everything, I believe. He obviously sings, he plays the synthesizers, he plays the guitar, he does the drums, or the drum machine, I guess. He does everything. I think he probably produces it as well. Now, it's a really good album. I think this is his second album. This one came out in 2015, so it's relatively, well, very new, let's face it. I'm pretty certain his debut album came out maybe 3 or 4 years before that. I've never listened to that one, or I've yet to listen to it. But I was hooked on this. I don't know where I heard it, but I heard one track and I thought, that's really, really good. And I love that synth pop kind of stuff anyway, that electropop music. I've always been a sucker for that kind of stuff. I think it probably goes back to maybe early 80s new wave music, and certainly mid to late 80s and early 90s with Erasure and people like that. I love that kind of music. So this is that same kind of thing, but like a modernised version. It's the kind of music you'd either hear at a club or that you'd hear in the summer. Imagine going in like a convertible, down the freeway, in the hot weather of a July in a baking hot summer. That kind of thing. You've got the music blaring out. It's really kind of cool. I like it anyway. But my one criticism about this, and I feel quite harsh saying it because it's not really a true criticism as such, but basically it starts off with a song called Try to Lose, and the one after that is Show Me the Way and Never Gets Old is the next one, Calling Out. I'm not going to read all the songs out, but every one of them, up until probably maybe three or four from the end, they sound the same. They just blend, which is kind of a good thing, I guess, in a way, but also a little bit lame and a little bit odd that they did that. They could have broken that up. Maybe even could have saved some of these songs, put them on another record, because that probably would have been successful, because they're catchy kind of dance clubby tunes. But to have them all playing one after another, it honestly, I'm not even joking, it made me laugh as well, because my initial reaction was, all these songs sound the same. So I had a look on on Google a few days ago, to see if other people were saying a similar thing. And sure enough, a lot of people were saying that in reviews, like, the songs basically sound the same. They morph into each other. But, I mean, is it a criticism? Is it kind of a compliment in a way? I guess that's up to you. Maybe that's a very subjective thing. There's a couple of tracks towards the end which kind of ever so slightly veer away from how it opens, but ultimately it's the same kind of thing. But I do like it. It is a good record. As I say, I'll put a track below, and if you like the track below, you probably like the rest of the record, because it'll pretty much sound identical. So 2 left. Now, this next band are amazing. I love this band. If you're into your shoegazing music, a comparison to these band, I guess, would be someone like a Swerve Driver, who had a Swerve Driver record on one of my vinyl pickups going back about a year or two. Maybe the Jesus and Mary chain is another good comparison to use. You could say Oasis, and Oasis ties into this in a way. That band is Ride. Now, this is the best of. I believe this was re-released quite recently, like last year or the year before, on the record day, which they have kind of every year, essentially, where they re-release things for fans, usually hardcore fans, collector's editions, limited editions, re-releases, special editions, all that kind of stuff. So it's quite difficult to get hold of. Now, the standard record isn't, but this is a red vinyl. if I have the time or if I remember, I may put in some video footage in the side of the screen or some photos. Accept my apologies if I don't, but I'll try and do that so you can see what this, and maybe all the others for that matter, look like. It'll be a nice, just see what they look like, because the red is really striking. It looks very, very good. So yeah, and at the back, the interesting thing about Oasis there, you can see the guy. Where is he? Try and get it right. There he is. That's Andy Bell, who is, or was, the guitarist in Oasis. He replaced Bonehead, essentially, didn't he? So in about 99, is it 99, give or take? So yes, Andy Bell, formerly of Oasis, has gone back to Ride. They had split up, I guess, when he joined Oasis, or not long after. And yeah, they've recently reformed. I believe there's a new album out later this year. Now, Ride, when they first came out, which is probably like the very late 80s, I wasn't really aware of them because back then I was a kid and I was into my pop music, which again ties into the next record. And so I wasn't really aware of stuff like this. But I was aware of them in around about 93 or 94. They had an album, which I think was their third or fourth album, called Carnival of Light. And I remember, even though I was only like 14, 15, 16, however old I was at the time, I remember a lot of people giving this album a lot of praise. And I heard a couple of tracks, I thought, that's really good. So they certainly weren't, Ride certainly were not the band or even one of the bands that got me into shoegazing and Britpop and indie music, alternative rock. But I guess in a small way they kind of played their part. Because, like I say, when I listened to Carnival of Light, I thought that's really, really good. But then they split up about a year later, I think after their last record, which I think was 95. So, but yeah, really good album. It's a best of, essentially. So you've got some great songs on there, like Chelsea Girl, Drive Blind, Like a Daydream, Taste is probably one you'll recognise if you're into that kind of scene. Dreams Burn Down, Birdman, How Does It Feel to Feel, another really good track. So yeah, really good. If you're into your shoegazing music, you've got to listen to Ride. They're a really good band, and I'm really pleased that they've reformed because they're good, quite frankly, and I'll be buying it. When they release that album, you will see that on a pickup vid, and that's a promise. That is a promise. Now, last but not least, as I keep saying, is my cheesy 80s purchase. I really like it. Now, admittedly, it's probably nostalgia because, I remember it when I was a kid. In fact, I remember the day that my dad bought the cassette. I remember it like it was yesterday. It's funny how you remember certain things. We were again in Bournemouth, and where we moved to when I was a kid, around about this time actually, late 80s. So we moved down south, and we were in a shop, like a supermarket called Gateway. I think it's changed now to Asda, but still at the same building, it's still a food thing, but it's now Asda. And at the time, like I guess a lot of places do, like Safeway or Tesco and all that kind of stuff in the UK, they sell, or they certainly did at the time, they sold like cassettes. And I remember seeing this one. I'll show you what it is. It's the London Boys. Shut up. They're good. I like the London Boys. And sadly, terrible news, they both passed away in the mid-90s in an accident on the Swiss Alps. So I think they released maybe 2 or 3 albums altogether. But this, honest, I'm not even joking, the 12 Commandments of Dance, if you like your pop music, again, early kind of synth pop, electropop, if you like that, you'll probably like this. It's really good. Now, again, nostalgia's probably dictating my bias towards this. But there's some great, great pop songs on here, like Requiem, Harlem Desire, Chinese Radio, My Love, London Nights was one of their big hits. A really good album. Every song on the album is really strong from a pop perspective. Excuse me. So, now the funny thing is with this as well, is the CD version, if you go back a few years, I don't know if it's changed, but the CD version on eBay would fetch around about 50, 60 quid, sometimes more. It was quite uncommon, but I believe that they made a fresh run of prints. So I think that brought the price down, as you'd probably expect. So it can probably still be bought now, or be bought, I should say, for maybe 10, 15 quid, maybe even cheaper than that. But I urge you, if you're into your pop music, if you're not going to like it. But if you're into your pop music and a little bit of electropop, and, bonus, you want to see them doing their dancing, because they're dancers, really kind of atmospheric, aerobic stuff, high adrenaline, high energy. I'll put a clip below, maybe again, well, certainly to a song from the album, but also maybe to a live performance, like I said, with Will and the People, and you'll see them dancing around, because to do that, they had to be in shape, seriously. So yeah, really strong nostalgic roots for me for the London Boys, and I do genuinely like them. I really do. Although I keep saying it, it's probably nostalgia. Ruling the roost there, ruling the heart ruling the head maybe. So there we are. So that's my vinyl pickups. Obviously can't see a lot there other than different colours. So apologies for taking a while to make this one, but I do promise that my next vinyl vid will be sometime before the middle of next month, and maybe I can possibly squeeze 2 vinyl vids into next month. We'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks to all my new subscribers, old ones as well. Much appreciated. Until my next vid, see you later.